Hi, everybody. It's Jean Humbrecht with Humbrecht Law, criminal and traffic defense attorney in Manassas, Virginia. Welcome to my semi-weekly local business spotlight. Today, I am joined by a special guest and a new friend that I met out in Front Royal, Liz Rochelle from Pink Thread Financial. Liz grew up in Midland, Texas, and graduated from Texas Tech University. Supposed to say go Red Raiders, whatever. In 2001, I have a different team, but I won't say who it is. In 2010, Liz earned a master's of business administration from Hood College in Frederick, Maryland. Her path eventually led to the corporate personal finance world, but the fit wasn't quite right. She wanted to serve and educate, not be tied to account minimums and commission-based products. So in January 2024, she launched her own financial coaching and content firm, Pink Thread Financial. Liz is now happily doing the work she loves, helping women identify the emotions and values behind their money to create lives that make them feel secure and confident. When not working, she's hanging out with her husband, Dan, and their two very bad cats, Sage and Cheddar. Are there any good cats? On the weekend, on the weekends, you can usually find her next to the campfire or catching some live music at a local winery. And a very brief side note before we start, as soon as I read the winery and live music, I thought Liz and I have to hang out more often because that's what I love to do. But anyway, enough about me. Liz, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell everybody just a little bit about your business, and I'm going to share this on my different Facebook groups.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I was touched to be asked. So I am the owner of Pink Thread Financial, real financial coaching for real women in real life. I work with women one-on-one in groups and in webinars and through seminars with a focus on uh, really financial literacy and competency, and then aligning their habits with their values. So we focus and have those moments where we talk about what your money is doing for you, but also kind of definitions and understanding of what the heck they're talking about when you're talking to your financial advisor or your insurance agent or when you're getting a mortgage or buying a house. And lots more. But I'm here to support those financial professionals and be the background and advocate for the women I work with uh, through just financial understanding. Um, so it's been a great almost 6 months now that I've run my company, which is amazing to me. But we are here trying to fight the good fight when it comes to financial understanding for women. So
Now, why is it that you specifically wanted to build your business around financial education and coaching for women specifically?
I specifically kind of chose that niche because first of all, it speaks to me because of course I am one. But I've I was when I was in the financial advisor space, I had a lot of folks that would talk with me about previous kind of encounters with other financial professionals where they felt talked down to.
Mhm.
And there's also this just sort of understanding in the financial world that women are slowly but surely encountering and inheriting and making more and more of the wealth in the United States. But we still are very underrepresented when it comes to financial professionals, particularly financial advisors. But it's taken almost this long for financial advisors and the financial industry to focus on the needs of women and the fact that women are now the folks that are maybe holding the purse strings, as you say. So it really just felt like a group of folks that needed that extra confidence because it really is about confidence. We have no more or less ability to learn financial literacy. It's just about making sure that we have the confidence to walk into a room with a financial professional and be able to make those choices, the right choices for us. So
Do you think it's in addition to the confidence of just making the right choices, the confidence in being totally honest with them about everything going on in your individual situation?
uh, I
No.
what do you mean exact? Kind of go a little further with that.
Well, because you had mentioned that women can feel talked down to when they're talking to male financial advisors. So I was just wondering, what how I would feel different going to you, and somebody that focuses on the women's education versus
Hmm.
a male financial advisor. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I didn't ask it very well.
Well, listen, and sometimes I don't listen very well,
Well,
or listen clearly, get it. But I think that, and of course, this is generalizations as far as men go, because there's certainly lots of men financial advisors that understand the needs that a woman might have walking into their office. But the problem tended to be over time that women were coming in as part of a heterosexual couple, and in that couple, the man was being talked to about the financial side of things, and the woman was being kind of ignored, and I over and over was running into that as I was talking to my clients, and really clients of a certain age. So,
mhm,
you know, I feel like that's changing and evolving a lot. And I mean, by the minute almost, particularly because we've been identified as the group that really will inherit a ton of wealth, uh, in the next 30 to 40 years, thanks to the baby boomer generation that really holds 50% of the wealth in the United States. Women live longer. We tend to be a couple of years younger than our heterosexual partners. So we'll outlive them and likely be younger than them when they pass away. So that's about a 7-year gap
mhm,
when women will likely hold the wealth, that was passed to them through the family. And that's if they weren't necessarily responsible for the wealth that came in the first place, because women are slowly, we're filling that gender gap. We are moving into the C suite, we're moving up the ladder and making more money. So there's just lots of places where we see women starting to have a role in the conversation that we didn't have before.
mhm. Well, that makes sense when you explain it like that. But someone recently told me, I never really thought about it, but in the context of commercials on television, that um, women tend to be the financial decision makers in the homes, and maybe they meant that more on a smaller scale for in-home purchases versus investing money in life insurance and things like that. So I was curious, as to your opinion on that, and if that's something that has been changing or if that's always kind of been there, but people are just acknowledging it more now.
I definitely think that it is changing. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Women have tended to be the decision makers when it comes to the day-to-day
Mhm,
expenses that the household encounters and incurs. So women tend to pay the bills,
mhm,
keep the budget and, check the checking account. And then men have been, and this is, like I said, this is just typical, but men have typically been in charge of having the conversations with the financial advisor and overseeing investments and making decisions about investments and just making decisions about, insurance, dealing with the mortgage broker when buying a house. So, and that is what's starting to change. But also, when you see that there's this group of women that will at some point be making those decisions on their own, it's great to have that kind of knowledge in their back pocket, even if they're not ready to make the decisions now.
mhm,
Then they'll be ready to make those decisions and not be in the dark when things happen and they're on their own. So
mhm. What do you find to be the biggest challenge or challenge for women, talking with you or a financial professional, or maybe put a different way, what is it that they would have more questions about or maybe don't understand as much?
I think the biggest challenge is it's not literacy, but the basis for literacy is there. There's still that lack of literacy, but
Mhm,
it's confidence. it's the understanding that they will be able to make these choices and that they have the ability to make good choices and will make good choices. Women are great too because they tend to trust and work with their advisor in a way that men usually don't.
Hmm.
So we're all here ready to hear the advice. We're ready to want to know more. It's just the availability of it being out there. And then we want to learn it from a trusted source. And
Hmm.
there are so many sources out there these days, that finding that source that you can count on to give you the right information that's not just TikTok.
Right.
Not that there aren't people on TikTok that aren't saying the right things, but there's a lot of people that are saying things that have absolutely nothing to do with their situation,
Right.
or, it's very broad when
Hmm.
really specialized advice is right at some point for most people. So that tends to be the biggest thing, is really confidence,
Hmm.
just knowing that they really will make the right choices for themselves. And if they have a trusted someone in their corner, that makes a huge difference.
Hmm. And they should have someone that they trust, because talking about money can be a touchy or uncomfortable subject just in itself, and then you add in the factor of a lack of confidence about even dealing with it, because we can all learn the same thing, but you're right
Yep.
about the confidence. So and I still learn every day about financial issues, and what you said about the TikTok video makes sense, because I asked someone the other day, do you think I should pay off my mortgage, or should I put more money to my mortgage first, or should I pay down my car loan that's more than the mortgage, but I also need to set up life insurance, and what do I do first? And you got to look at everything, you got to look at the whole
Yep.
picture, because I've noticed that some people will, they'll mortgage first, pay that down, or pay off the high interest car payment, like, and I'm not saying any of these is right, or they're like, you need life insurance. So but you got to look at the whole picture, because people have
Yeah.
told me you need this, and I'm like, yeah, well, I also have all these other things that I have to deal with. So
Yeah, it's so helpful to have a disinterested kind of third party. Not
mhm.
an uninterested third party, but just that person that can come in and go, "Okay, here's your overall financial life.
Mhm.
Here's what you do, your taxes. If you're a business owner, if you're a W-2 employee, if you're both, if you're married, if you're single, there are so many, if you have kids,
Mhm.
and then taking that all and seeing the big picture, that's where so many the really successful and the good financial professionals take those things into consideration. They're not just seeing things in a vacuum.
Mhm.
Your tax professional shouldn't just be doing your taxes in this bubble of, we're just trying to make sure this year that you're paying your taxes, which is important, but if we're tax planning for the future. We're not just looking at the past. So it may be that you could save here on your taxes this year, but is that the right thing for you 5 years from now? Or
Right.
if you want to buy a house, or if you want to start a business. So, there's a lot of these things to see. And you're right, exactly what you're talking about, is what's challenging for a lot of folks. And it's so much better when you can sit down and talk to somebody and have them map it out for you. And I, whilst I focus more on the literacy side, and I'm not an no longer an investment advisor, there are people, certified financial planners, CFPs, that
Mhm.
really are the right choice when you're looking at long-term planning. And so I tend to recommend talking to a CFP. There's a lot of knowledgeable financial advisors in different spaces that also do the same kind of work, that do long-term planning. But a CFP, that's what they do. That's in their job description, that
Mhm.
they are planning for the long term. So
Mhm. And I'm actually glad that you said that. That leads me to another question. What is the difference? Because a lot of people might not know this, between coaching, what you do, and what a financial planner does, or is there overlap?
there's a lot of overlap, actually. I so to talk to folks about to give people advice about investments, you have to be licensed. You have to be registered. And
Mhm,
I was registered, and I kind of made the choice to not be registered,
mhm,
and to move into the coaching space. So I cannot give people advice on investments. That's the big difference between what a financial advisor is and what a financial coach is.
okay,
Really, a financial coach, I'm focused on teaching. You can ask me what a mutual fund is, and I can absolutely define it for you, but I can't tell you which one to buy,
right.
if that makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
But I also, and a financial planner, not necessarily an investment advisor, which sometimes it's hard to know the difference. But a financial planner also can do a lot of that, and they will do a lot of that. And I do talk to folks about, their tax situation and their spending and saving situations. I make sure, like, I want to make sure, are you covered as far as your insurance goes? Are you making the right decisions when it comes to what you're paying for your house,
Mhm,
etc. But really, my focus is getting folks prepared and ready and in the right space so that they can move to the next level and work with the right financial professional for them.
mhm,
So there's a triage section, and then there's a long-term coaching financial literacy kind of section. And
okay.
the triage is more, okay, let's make sure, you walked in to me and you have a box full of stuff that you found in your mom's house after she passed away. Let's go through it together. Let's figure out what this is. That's the triage kind of side of things. And then once we move into kind of an ongoing relationship, we're talking more about spending and savings. And like I
Mhm,
said, my focus is truly on values, on really values based spending and saving. So we identify what is it that's important in your life, and that's the filter through which you view
mhm.
your spending and your savings. Because if we don't have that and we're just doing it willy-nilly, that's where problems start to happen.
You're right, and that is true. You do have to think about what's important in your life because if there are some things that you just that's important to you, whether it's I guess discretionary spending, if you want to call it that. I shouldn't even use terms like that because I'm just pretending I know what they mean. But things that are important to you that you want to do, that cost money, right? But you also have to look at all the things that you should be saving for, and like you said, your insurance and all that stuff. And there are some people who will say, "Don't ever go out to eat again." Don't take vacations, like don't no, like people aren't going
Yeah.
to do that. I guess what I'm saying is like it goes more towards people that understand you and what's important to you, and to be able to budget for those things because you're not going to just totally cut them out of your life, right?
Right. Right. And if you really dig down deep, so if you've got your basics covered, you've got a, a roof over your head and food to eat, and then the things that come with that, that's really the things that even come with that really are the next step. That's where the values fall in, because I could live in a house or I can live in an apartment, and my insurance needs are different, my tax needs are
Mhm,
different. So you're making it's that trade-off kind of, from the beginning. So if you're identifying a value that's important to you, my value is my children. Okay, let's say that's a value for
mhm,
somebody. Okay, then if that's a value, then is a value that they have a backyard and a home that's theirs, or is the value that you want them to see the world, so you'd rather have something a little bit less permanent. Yeah. So
yeah.
it really, you really can drill down to the most basic things that you spend your money on. There's the myth of the $10 latte that after, a year you could save thousands of dollars. And I understand what their point is, but that's kind of not the purpose of what I'm talking about. Like, yes, there is an exchange, but okay, what if coffee is super important to you and that makes you happy, and every day that gives you a smile and you need it? If that's a value for you, I'm not here to judge what your values are.
Mhm.
I'm just here to say you got to have some, and then you've got to use that as that filter. So,
Yeah. And a lot of people don't. it's not that they don't think about it, but a lot of people don't talk about that because as you do a lot of networking, you know that I've come across a lot of either financial planners or financial coaches or and there's very specific ways that you know that everybody describes themselves, but and I've talked to a lot of people over the years and I've just heard so many different things, and you know how can they how can you say this guy's wrong and this girl's right, or this girl's wrong and this guy's right? But I've also noticed that some of them don't ask about everything going on and the big picture. And I've noticed that because over time, and you know, it took me a long time. Well, it feels like a long time, the process of buying my house. And then when I was ready, COVID hit. So that kind of threw a wrench in the whole thing. But it's been years and years and years that I've been looking at finances and I still don't know what I'm doing. But I've been talking, but I know, you know, all the things that they should know or things that they're going to ask. And sometimes when I feel like they don't ask certain questions and tell me things, I'm like, well, I also have this going on and this going on. And it seems like you from the beginning would be able to get all of that information from the person so that you can, you know, start that triage process, because you can't do everything at once. It's just not possible. Right. Or maybe it is, but you might want to do everything at once, but if you know, I'm not putting words in your, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you would probably be able to help them. Like, this is what you have to do first based on that initial conversation, and then just go from there. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think you really hit the nail on the head when we have to stop the bleeding if there is bleeding
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
before we can, before we can get you walking again, right?
Well, yeah,
So,
yeah,
and it may not be that extreme. A lot of the folks I deal with are just like, I really just want to get better at this. It's not that it's bad. It's just that I want to get better. Um, but but absolutely. And the way I work is kind of, I have ongoing clients, but I also have these kind of one-time project clients where they really are, we're just focusing on the triage part of things
yeah.
because they got to get from step one to step two.
Hmm, hmm.
And a lot of the time that happens when, and this has been a bigger part of my practice than I even thought would be the case. That's happening when a spouse is passing away, or a parent particularly is passing away, or a divorce happens, and then information is coming to them that they didn't know existed before. So all of a
Hmm.
sudden and I I can so remember I lost my dad when I was in my early 20s, and you're just not prepared at that point, and it was a surprise. And so it was like, what do I do? There's just these boxes of things and this house of stuff, and of course you hope that people prepare, and that's such a great gift when you can give your next generation, you can prepare them for what's going to happen, and you explain, like, here's where the passwords are, and here's where the but a lot of people don't do that, and money has still always been kind of this personal private thing, and I see it a lot in that kind of baby boomer and slightly older generation where it's not something we talk about. So then folks don't know what's going
Hmm.
to happen with, or what even is there. So, yeah. So I do
Yeah,
a lot of that kind of, I almost call it like financial organization. It's
that's a good
not,
way to describe it. Yeah.
yeah, it's not even, it's not as much literacy. It's more of like, what is this? This is a stock certificate. Okay, this is who you need to call about this, and this is a bank statement, and here's who we need to call. And yeah,
The practical
yeah,
things, because you can
yeah,
see how much money's in the bank, you can see what the stocks are, but yeah, what do you do? What do you do with it? Yeah, you're right.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So it's that's an interesting kind of side part of this that I wasn't expecting, but it's become more and more obvious that that's something people need. So that's great because it gives me the ability to kind of help people in a different way than I even thought I would be able to. So,
Mhm. Yeah, you know, I didn't really think about that either. Yeah, let's. What do you do when? Because you got to make decisions. You got to make decisions right away about this.
yep.
Yeah, this. I don't even know. Like
Yeah.
the,
And
the
if you
ability to
if you have
access
a oh,
the
go ahead.
ability to access the money in the bank, which because I know can be a problem in itself if things aren't, set up properly. And then dealing with like distribution and the will, and you need an attorney to deal with that. And hopefully everything is all squared away and all that paperwork's done. So all you need to do is just,
Yep.
distribute it, and there's no fighting, but there always is fighting. I'm sure you work with this estate attorneys as well with what you do.
Yeah, in fact, it's there's they see it firsthand.
Okay.
And most of the time, if this is an ongoing relationship, they've prepared. Yeah,
Mhm,
a good estate attorney, which is the only ones I try to work with, obviously, are preparing their clients for what is to come and having honest conversations about that. But
mhm, mhm.
yeah, there's always the folks that just didn't think they needed an attorney or didn't have one, or maybe there was kind of a hoarding situation, or even just somebody who lived in a house for 50 years. There's going to be stuff and it got put away in a drawer, and now we've got to figure out, what the heck does this mean? So, yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of that.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of preparing for everything, you're right. If people are working with you, they'll and it's not just what we talked about earlier. It's or the things that I mentioned. It's not just paying off this debt or preparing because you want to buy a new house or life insurance. I mean, all that stuff is basic and important, and your homeowner's insurance and all that stuff. But yeah, it's also planning for if something happens to you, having gap insurance, having what is it, long term care
Yep.
coverage, and the life insurance and the will and all that stuff. And I know, I mean, I don't. This isn't the area that I practice in, but I just know that people don't like talking about it, and they don't like. I guess they just subconsciously, mentally don't want to deal with it, right? I'm probably, and that might
Absolutely.
be why some of them don't. But then something, some tragedy happens, or even not a tragedy, and they just never got around to it, and then their loved ones or their heirs or their spouses find out when they pass away that none of this stuff is set up, and that it just is going to cost so much more money from everybody, having to pay somebody that the court appoints to deal with all that. So anyway, that's a very long explanation of you got to look
You're
at every
right.
plan
Yeah.
for everything,
Yep.
and at least
It's so true.
take it into consideration and think about those things. And it's not just the house that I want to buy in a few years. It's all this stuff.
Yeah. There's so many things. There's so many steps to this, and different situations. And like I said, there are so many people that need help, and sometimes they don't know that they need help, or they don't know who to reach out to. And that's always great, because I'm the person to reach out to. You know what I'm saying? Like I always say, like, let's talk through it first, and then I am gonna, because I know who I am and what I can do and what I can't, and I'm not an expert in as well. So, but I've built this community, this network of folks that I trust. That's not because I get some sort of like kickback for it or anything else. In fact, I've been really strict about making sure that, like, I pay for my own lunch if we have lunch, and I
Hmm.
don't, I'm starting to do a blog, and I never want to have any sort of, sponsored by Betterment or whatever. I just don't,
Hmm.
that none of that. I It bothers me when that happens. A
Hmm.
lot of the podcasts I hear where they're like, okay, here's the high APR, credit card that you need to get. And I'm like, but you're giving people financial advice. You should be third party. And so,
Yeah.
point being, we talk about who they need to go see next, and they may have their own ideas about who they may have their own insurance person or whatever. It's just a matter of, hey, this is who you need to ask this question to.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's like being the conductor
Right. Right. That's a good
of the orchestra.
explanation. So, what would you say to somebody who might, because this can be a little overwhelming, it can, like, I'm sure you understand that, but also people who aren't in this, even if we have some knowledge, it can be overwhelming. So what would you say to people is the best way to start, and like the most important thing to think about, or what to talk to a financial coach about if you go for the first time?
I would say that you would I need to identify 1 to 3 goals. And I think we think of goals like I want to take a vacation, like a European vacation in 2 years. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about.
Mhm, mhm,
Certainly there are folks that do want to do that, but I'm talking about, hey, I want to figure out the best. I'm in too much credit card debt, and I want to figure out a way. What's the best way to pay this off? Or I want to buy a house in a couple of years. How do I get my finances ready for that?
mhm,
And
mhm,
or I know that we're going to be empty nesters in a couple of years. How do we make those next steps to kind of ensure that we're getting our finances in the right place? So
mhm,
really identifying a few goals is a really good place to start because if I sit down with you for the first time, we're going to have a pretty lengthy
mhm,
just conversation about what you need and what's important and what are you looking for. And then from there, I start to kind of identify problems we need to address or issues we need to address and we make a plan. So I actually have a that I stole from my very very good friend Crystal Smith, a plan that has just action steps and we just do a few at a time. Like there's a long-term plan, but there's a short-term plan, and people have to know that these things aren't going to happen overnight. But if they
right.
have a couple of just little action steps that they can take each month or each week, we
Mhm,
break it up into teeny tiny bite
mhm,
sizes. It's much easier. I think I don't remember who I saw that calls it like micro goals. Like
mhm.
micro goals. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but
But
it's a
that's
good thing.
that's pretty much the way I work. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that you described it that way because yeah, you're right. I mean, like it's good to have the goals, but then if you have $5,000 in credit card debt and all these other things, it's like, oh my God, how am I going to pay $5,000? Like you don't pay it all at once, you figure out you can pay X amount a week or a month or whatever and still be able to pay everything else. And is that the type of thing that you're talking about?
That's exactly the type of thing. And yeah, some of the folks I talk with have credit card debt and they're trying to pay it down, but they have other things they want to concentrate on as well. And so we have, you know,
Mhm.
you might go on TikTok or something and somebody might say, you got to pay down those credit card bills first. And that's the number one priority. And it's easy for them to say because they are giving advice to everyone.
Mhm.
They're trying to be kind of
Right.
audacious. But of course, yes, credit card debt tends to be by far the highest, interest payment that we make by far. Consumer debt has 25 to 30%, where most
Mhm.
of our debt tends to below 10. So, of course, but they also have kids to send to school and retirement to save for. So, there's more of a conversation that needs to be had that's specialized to their particular situation.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean that's so true. There are so many things, and then the more advanced you get in life, because I never feel like I'm as advanced as I should be, but the more advanced you get in life, the more I don't want to say problems, but there are more things to
Yep.
consider, like in terms
your
of right
your
now and the
financial life gets more complex the
yeah,
older you get,
it does.
for the most part. And if because as soon as we buy a house or and have retirement savings or run a business, yeah, absolutely. And then start to inherit money and
Mhm,
maybe
mhm.
find a spouse. Yeah, it just gets more and more complex for sure.
Yeah. So what is one piece of advice that you would leave the listeners with? Because there's so much to talk about. What is one thing that you try to make sure everybody knows?
Don't avoid your finances. Don't play the avoidance game. It's easy to do. Just face it and know that there are you can tackle just a little bit at a time and it will make a huge difference. Compounding works in both ways. So,
Hmm.
you know, your credit card compounds your interest every day and it makes it higher and higher and higher. But at the same time, making a change also compounds in the positive direction.
Mhm.
So just don't forget that teeny tiny little action is better than no action at all. And
Mhm.
that if you avoid the situation, it's not going to make it better.
That's actually a really good way to end. And it's manageable. Teeny tiny action, don't avoid it. There's no reason we should avoid it if you can do this in small bite-sized chunks.
Yeah. And ask for help. Ask for help from somebody.
Mhm.
If you have somebody you trust that that has financial professionals in their lives, ask them for a referral.
Mhm.
Maybe they can, because even if their financial professional can't help, maybe that financial professional can find somebody that can. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else you want to let everybody know before we sign off for the day?
Um, Thank you. I do have a hybrid coaching program that I do. It's called Emerge, and folks can sign up for that on my website. It's really that one-on-one time that people probably need with a financial coach, where we work through their spending and savings plan, but then it also provides that camaraderie of a group in a group learning setting. So the financial literacy stuff kind of comes in the group side, and then we have one-on-one time as well. So if that's something you're interested in, like I said, go to my website. You can also sign up for time just to talk with me there if you want to kind of. It's a complimentary chat where we can just kind of figure out what you need, and I'll be really honest with you about whether something's right for you or not. So
Mhm.
but it's www.pinkthreadfinancial.com. Super easy.
I typed in Pink Thread Financial, but I forgot the www. Third financial. There we go. And we can have a whole other separate live about this, but Liz also runs. Do you run the Women in Business
I
networking group or one of the?
I am one of the founders of it with Margie Connolly. So that's wonderful. It's in Front Royal. We have our next one. It's a really awesome point that I wanted to point out. It is, and it should be coming out pretty soon. So that'll be on June the 20th at 5:30. And we meet every Monday morning as well. Our big mixer is in the evenings once a month. But we also meet at 8 a.m. most Mondays, same
Mhm,
place, which is in Front Royal.
mhm,
And then I'm also the co-founder of the Pink Thread Co-op,
mhm,
which is for women entrepreneurs as well. And so pinkthreadcoop.com, and we have a group on Facebook as well. So there's just lots of support for women, lots of support for women entrepreneurs, lots of support for women and money.
mhm.
Uh, just here to support.
Yeah, there is a lot of support. I don't think
Yeah,
I I don't think I met you at the Women in Business. I first started talking to you at the Women in Business Mixer. I think we met at something else before then, but
I think so.
but
Yeah.
that event in Front Royal, I loved it. It was great. I met so many great people there, and I went to a couple of the Pink Thread Co-op online networking meetings, and because of that, I started looking at the Warren County Chamber of Commerce events, and then I went to one of those recently, and I met so many other great people, and I'm just spending
That's
more and more time in Front Royal. So,
that's
but you meet,
awesome.
yeah, I mean, everybody was so helpful and welcoming, and it's just such a good environment. So, but we can do a whole other live about the networking sometime.
Absolutely. I'm here for it. I am totally here for it. So
Awesome. Okay, well, I think I'm going to see you at the Women in Business Coffee Monday, June 10th at 8 a.m. at Turning Leaf Realty.
awesome.
And then
I will be there.
as you I would hope so. And as you heard, the next mixer is June 20th. I don't know where that is, but look at the Facebook group or the
It's at the same place at Turning
oh,
Leaf. So as far as we know, it will usually be at Turning Leaf.
oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and thanks Liz so much for we talked for 40 minutes, and I could still ask you like 5,000 more questions, but thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it, and this really was very helpful. I mean, I'm not just saying that. Like every time I talk to somebody in finance or talk to you, I just learned so much more, and I think I'm going to be having a conversation with you soon. offline.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm doing the live again in 2 weeks. I don't remember who is coming on, but you'll see it on my Facebook group. So, all right. See, this is what happens when you're a busy business owner and yeah. But there's going to be somebody in 2 weeks. So, all right. Well, Liz, thank you. And thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you later.
Thanks.